It's time for part 7 of our Scholomance Academy reviews. This is the last review that we'll release before the expansion hits, so let's make it a great one. We're looking at some of the amazing cards for Rogue, some cards for Mage that will likely spawn a new archetype in the meta, and a neutral legendary that opens the door to quite a few possibilities. Let's get started.
This should be interesting.
We review cards a bit differently here, so if you haven't seen earlier reviews, there's a card above linking to review number 2 where we explain the criteria if you'd like to watch the intro of that video. There's a time code for quick reviews with puns in the description below for those of you without much time. For everyone else, let's get into the main reviews. So those of you who have been with me since the beginning may know that Academic Espionage Rogue was my all-time favorite archetype. And I have a soft spot in my heart for Quest Rogue, hence the reason I'm so excited about the near infinite immune weapon potential with Dr. Krastenov and Togwaggle's scheme. Well, the first card we're looking at this time supports both Quest Rogue and Secret Rogue. Plagiarize is the new 2-mana secret for rogues that adds copies of the cards your opponent played to your hand at the end of their turn. Now, opponents can just play neutral cards, and this doesn't help against other rogues, but a lot of the time, this will get a card or two towards our quest. So with the Paladin's Secret Competitive Spirit as a prior example of a similar effect, I don't believe this will trigger if your opponent plays no cards on their turn. So it should always get you at least one card. But there's a lot going on with this secret. If you're not just trying to get Quest Rogue progress, but actually want something decent from your opponent, figuring out the best timing for this will be key. If you know your opponent is likely to play a powerful next turn, playing this will either get you copies of their resources or make them reconsider and possibly take a weaker turn to play around it. You'll also want to be careful with hand space against decks that play a lot of cheap cards, as this could cause you to mill a card if they play out too much at once. But with everything to consider, this is a really fun addition to the secret package for rogues. So in the current meta, the best candidate to include Plagiarize would be Secret Galakrond Rogue, as they already run part of the secret package. They currently run Ambush and Dirty Tricks alongside Shadow Jeweler Hanar, but no Bamboozle due to the counter synergy with Questing Adventurer. In the pre-Questing Adventurer builds, Plagiarize certainly would have made the cut, but Secret Galakrond Rogue's current game plan is to cycle through the deck and play a bunch of low-cost cards to build up Questing Adventurer, or tempo the opponent with ridiculous lackey value. This doesn't necessarily help towards that game plan, but there are times it could generate a few low-cost resources to chain out. It certainly wouldn't be a core card, but it may be possible to fit a copy in as a popular card. This is a bit questionable, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it could be meta now. With the help of Wand Thief and all the weapon synergies that work well with the quest reward, I want to say that Quest Rogue can join the meta decks, but I fear it may still not make it into the meta. If it did, this would certainly see play in that deck. However, with 4 individual secrets now in standard alongside Shadow Jeweler Hanar, I could see this helping to resurrect Highlander Galakrond Rogue, and helping it climb back into the meta, as this can generate some extra resources for that deck. There's a lot of potential, so I'm gonna give this a hopeful meta later status as well. As for memes, there's no question this is going into our Krastenov scheme quest deck, but it will also support the Infinite Secret Tree meme deck, and we can even use it alongside Educated Elic and Scheme to build an infinite value heavy card draw deck that will eventually allow us to play nearly as many cards from our opponent's deck as they play in the game. There's a lot we can do with a card like this. Okay, so based on how long we spent on that card, you can tell I love Quest and Burgle Rogue, but let's speed things up a bit now. The next card for rogues is Shifty Sophomore. She's a 4-mana 4/4 with stealth and a spell burst effect to add a combo card to your hand. There are some great combo cards, and there are a few terrible combo cards, but a 4/4 with stealth isn't bad for 4 mana if a deck is looking for more stealth minions. In the current meta, the only deck using stealth minions is Galakrond Stealth Rogue, and they only run Spy Mistress and Skyvateer as their stealth minions to pair with Greyheart Sage. Akama doesn't even make the cut, So Shifty Sophomore would be way too expensive to make the cut in that deck, meaning she's not a meta now card. Alongside Infiltrator Lillian, there are some new options for Stealth Rogue from this expansion, but it's hard to imagine that a Stealth Rogue archetype able to include Shifty Sophomore will be strong enough to survive in the new meta. In meme decks, we can either use this as an extra combo card generator for a Whirl Kick Master meme deck, or push really hard into the Stealth package. Neither package fills out a full deck, so perhaps we build a stealthy Whirl Kick Master meme deck? That'll probably be terrible, but it should be fun. So Shifty Sophomore gets status as a meme deck enabler. When Shifty Sophomore is finished sifting through things to steal, she may need a way to escape quickly. Well, she might have found a Secret Passage. Secret Passage is a new 1-mana spell for rogues to replace your hand with 5 cards from your deck, then swap back next turn. 1 mana, draw 5 cards. Yeah, that'll never see play. Far too much value. Seriously though, this is amazing. In an aggressive deck, this is a great way to grab the last few minions or pieces of burst damage out of your deck to finish off the opponent. In a Galakron deck, if you really need one more invoke before playing Galakron, or you haven't found Galakron himself yet, you can use this to search for the card you need. The cards you don't play out just get shuffled back into your deck, so there's no drawback to playing this card other than the 1 mana cost. It's just great for sifting through your deck for what you're missing at the moment. One of the reasons the Galakron decks for Rogue are as successful as they are is the amazing card draw potential in them at the moment. That's half the reason why the Stealth package is run in Galakron Stealth Rogue and Dirty Tricks is used in Galakron Secret Rogue. These decks would find a way to include Secret Passage if they could. Secret Passage would be meta now. And together with weapon synergy cards, this will open the door for a much more aggressive style of Rogue to fight its way into the meta. So not only will Galakron be using the Secret Passage, but some new archetypes will use it to slip into the meta as well. This is also a great enabler for meme decks, as a way to find a puzzle piece we're looking to play out ahead of what we have in hand already. So when we need our last generate a card from another class card to complete our quest, we can use this. There will be lots of ways to use this spell in memes. For the non-quest rogue wanting to try out a weapon other than their hero power, Hooked Scimitar has some competition. Self-Sharpening Sword is a 3-mana 1/4 weapon that gains +1 attack after every time your hero attacks. So without any buffs or your opponent destroying it, this will do 10 damage over the course of 4 turns. Not bad for 3 mana. This is even more exciting alongside Captain Greenskin and Dr. Krastenov, as the extra durability will translate into 1 more hit with even higher attack. All the current meta decks for rogues are centered around Galakron, and this wouldn't fit very well into that type of deck, so Self-Sharpening Sword would not be meta now. However, this is an excellent tool for aggro rogues empowered by Secret Passage. After a few turns, this will heavily discount the Cutting Class card draw tool we saw for rogues and warriors last time. It will be meta later. While I am super excited about comboing the quest with Dr. Krastenov and Togwaggle's scheme, this could also provide the buff base weapon, and it would scale a lot faster than the quest weapon due to the text on this. We won't be immune while attacking with this meme deck, but we'll finish off our opponent almost twice as fast. So if Self-Sharpening Sword seems to be taking too long to deal damage, we could try pairing it with this next card. Vulpera Toxin Blade is a 3-mana 3/3 rogue minion that gives your weapon +2 attack for as long as he's on board. If you hero power on turn 2, this is a great follow-up, and it pairs exceptionally well with the weapons and the weapons synergy cards from this set. Cheaper card draw from Cutting Glass, and a bigger minion from Steel Dancer. The stats and the +2 attack on this for 3 mana make it somewhat comparable to SI7 Agent, which does see play as a popular card in Galakron Rogue. However, if Toxin Blade were drawn later in the game after playing Galakron, there would be no upside, making this significantly worse. I don't think Galakron Rogues would swap in Vulpera Toxin Blade right now. However, As a tempo play with excellent synergy and an aggressive rogue build, which most likely will cut its way into the new meta, this Vulpera should find a home in upcoming decks. While this does work well to buff up the attack of weapons in meme decks centered around making massive weapons, this card is never anything more than a 3/3 with +2 attack to our weapon. We could use Shadow of Death to shuffle some extra copies of it into our deck and draw them out with Stowaway for a bit of surprise burst damage. Yeah, okay. This can join meme decks. We're done with all the exclusively rogue cards, but there are several rogue and mage dual class cards we haven't looked at yet. The first one we'll look at is Brain Freeze, a 1 mana spell to freeze a minion, and if it's comboed out, it will also deal 3 damage to the minion. Rogues can freeze things now. At 1 mana, this is a great combo enabler, and when used with Backstab, this will finish off one of those pesky beaming sidekick buffed battle fiends that demon hunters like to coin out. Mages have a much more efficient freeze card in Ray of Frost, but they're always happy to have another freeze spell, and this is a nice way to finish off a minion that survived an AoE more efficiently than Ray of Frost could. This is another cheap activator for questing Adventurer or Edwin in the Galakron decks, while still being a great stall and removal option, so it probably would earn a slot in one of the decks. And while Highlander Mage already has 2 other 1 mana spells, the freeze tag on this may get them thinking of including it as well. No Minion Mage uses Frostbolt, and while this can't go face, I think there's a strong argument for adding it into that deck as well. At a base level, this is always an efficient freeze spell, and it has a nice upside, so it should be a surefire inclusion in a few decks in the new meta. But although this is a cool card, pun intended, with a couple effects bundled into it, there's not really anything exciting to do with it. We can make it deal more damage with spell power, or get a couple extra copies with Educated Elic, but it only ever hits a single minion. It doesn't appear as though there's anything exciting or experimental to do with this, so Brain Freeze does not get meme deck status. This next card might cause opponents to freeze for a few moments, trying to figure out which minion to target with damage. Jandis Barov is the 5 mana 2/1 mage and rogue dual class legendary minion with a battle cry to summon 2 random 5-cost minions. When you play her, you secretly pick one of the 5-cost minions to die when it takes damage. If you get a 1/1 Blood Herald as one of the choices, it'll be pretty obvious which one you chose to die when it takes damage. But there may be some cases when you decide to play mind games with your opponent in an effort to draw out some extra removal from them. But most of the time, you'll just choose the weaker minion to be the sacrificial lamb. With 92 minions at 5 mana, there's a huge range of possibilities from Jandis, but most of the time, you'll be flooding the board with stats and effects worth well more than 5 mana, so this is a great card. She doesn't really fit in any of the current rogue decks, but some versions might consider playing her if they could. However, she'd be a fair replacement for Ruststeed Raider or possibly even Twilight Drake in Highlander Mage. I think she would make the cut in a current meta deck. And with this much value packed into a single card, Jandis Barov will definitely earn a slot in a new meta deck. In a meme deck, we could play Bouncing Barov with her using Shadow Step and a few Brewmasters. And while it wouldn't be a smart way to play, I suppose it would be a meme to take a day and purposefully choose the bigger minion to die when it takes damage each time to see how opponents play around it or react. That feels rather foolish, but there are a few ways to meme with Jandis Barov. It looks as though Jandis Barov was busy brewing potions while working at Scholomance Academy. The last dual-class rogue and mage card is Potion of Illusion, a 4-mana spell to add 1/1 copies of minions to your hand, which cost 1 mana. Lots of people are already talking about how this allows Infinite Damage Mage to come back to standard, and indeed, that'll be a fun combo. To pull it off, you need a quest or side quest and Licensed Adventurer to get a coin, and then you play out both Sorcerer's Apprentices followed by both Potions of Illusions. At 10 mana, you drop Archmage Antonidas and 3 of the 1 mana Sorcerer's Apprentices, play a coin, and drop the last apprentice so you've generated a fireball, and now all fireballs cost 0 mana. That'll be one fun deck to try out with this, but there are lots of other possibilities in Mage as well as Rogue for this. While Galakron rogues wouldn't mind getting extra copies of Lackeys and cheaper copies of Questing Adventurers or Edwins to play out again, this would feel awkward stuck in hand until you've played enough minions to make it worth getting them back. Even at 4 mana doing nothing on board, it might actually be worth it in setting up a huge swing turn. There's a similar challenge in the argument for including this in Highlander Mage, but with so many powerful Battlecry minions in the deck, even if you just get one copy of one of the following minions, it'll feel worth it. Zephyrus, Malagos, Reno, Dragoncaster, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, or even Kalagos. So yeah, this would be a meta now card. Honestly, I think the Infinite Damage combo we mentioned a moment ago may be reliable enough to make a new meta deck, and a card like this opens the door for a number of other combo and crazy extra value decks to develop. So Potion of Illusion will find a home in at least one future meta deck. Some combos with this will be much more difficult than others. The more challenging combos will earn meme status, and when we discover or develop them, we will try them out. Potion of Illusion is an excellent meme deck enabler, which we look forward to experimenting with. There are also a few Mage-only cards we haven't looked at yet. A couple of the Mage minions would be quite nice to get an extra 1 mana 1/1 copy back in our hand. The first one is Firebrand, a 3 mana 3/4 with a spell burst effect to deal 4 damage randomly split among all enemy minions. So unlike its predecessor, Flamewaker, the damage from this can't go face, and there's a cap of 4 damage. However, this has +1/+1 in stats for the cost, and it will be much more reliable at helping take the board efficiently than Flamewaker ever could. Although they're the same species and somewhat similar effects, the playstyles for these cards is very different. The only Mage deck that runs minions in the current meta is Highlander Mage. While they do have a few cheap activators for Firebrand's Spellburst, I'm not sure they would include him. The most obvious minion to swap him for would be Imprisoned Observer, as they're both 3 mana minions oriented towards hitting the opponent's board. But unlike Imprisoned Observer, if you drop this on turn 3, there's no guarantee you'll be able to hit the enemy board. 2 damage to all enemy minions often stacks up to more than 4 randomly split damage, and the Dormant effect sometimes causes opponents to delay playing a minion onto the board. This might earn a spot in place of Overconfident Orc as a popular card, but the requirement to cast a spell on top of this to get full value from it makes it questionable. I'm gonna say it just barely doesn't make the cut. However, there is quite a bit of support for a small spell mage deck coming with this set, and in a deck running lots of small spells, I certainly can see this as a nice stall minion to drop before going all in on a Mana Cyclone turn. It has nice stats with a pretty nice Spellburst effect, so it's safe to say this should earn a spot in a new meta deck. It would be interesting to get a few extra copies of Firebrand with Potion of Illusion, which we covered a moment ago, but the damage does cap out at 4 per minion, and it is only ever directed at the board. It feels like there should be something bizarre we could do with this, but I'm not seeing anything at the moment. Until we figure something out to get extra value from this, or a way to pull off some unusual combo with it, I can't give this meme deck status. Now, Firebrand isn't the only mage minion with a Spellburst effect we'd love to trigger. The 5 mana 3/6 minion Wormweaver has a great Spellburst effect. Summon 2 1/3 mana worms. A 5 mana 3/6 minion isn't a bad stat line, and as mana worms used to cost 1 mana each, if we can trigger this with a 2 mana or less spell, this will feel like excellent value for the cost. One minor drawback is that the spell used to summon the mana worms will not buff them, but in a small spell mage, it shouldn't take long to get them quite large. Sadly, Highlander Mage doesn't have enough cheap spells to activate this and build the Mana Worms up to an aggressive stat line, so I don't think they would include Mana Worm in the current meta. But if Small Spell Mage is willing to run a slow starting 5-drop like this, it could get some real value. I'm not sure they'll be willing to run this in hopes that they can summon the worms and keep them alive to get value from them, alongside their main game plan of burning the opponent and generating new spells via Mana Cyclone. Wormweaver is a cool card, but she seems a bit difficult to get value out of reliably. And challenges such as that are often enough to keep cards like this out of the meta decks. I don't think she'll be able to join meta decks later either. However, in an effort to build up some massive mana worms to bash our opponent with, we'll build a dedicated stall deck to get some value from Wormweaver. We'll include lots of low-cost freeze cards alongside Ancient Mysteries and Counterspell so that we can lock down our opponent's board and counter board clear spells while building up our mana worms. Then we sick the mana worms on our opponent and watch them feast. It'll be a challenge to pull off, but it'll be fun. Both of the previous minions were contenders for a small spell mage deck. What's one of the reasons I'm feeling pretty confident that a small spell mage has a chance in the new meta? This next minion is a potent contributor to that confidence. Lab Partner is a 1-mana 1/3 mage minion with spell damage +1. We've seen that the 1-mana 1/3 stat line is a great starting point, as almost every minion with these stats at 1 mana has had a major impact on the meta. And in Mage, +1 spell damage is like sweet, sweet icing on the cake. +1 spell damage makes all their board clears much more devastating, and their burn spells all that more potent. As it's built at the moment, Highlander Mage uses surprisingly few spells that care about spell damage. They do have Arcane Breath, Ray of Frost, Flame Ward, Rolling Fireball, and Blizzard, but that's it. They can generate a few spells that may use it effectively as well, but I'm not sure Lab Partner would make the cut at the moment. I'm gonna have to pull him from the Meta Now list. But especially when paired with the next card we're looking at, Lab Partner is certain to see play in the upcoming meta. The spell damage package is coming to Mage, and Lab Partner is leading the way. Raz Frostwhisper is a really cool dual-class legendary for mages and shamans that we'll be looking at in more depth in the next review. His effect can be taken to frighteningly powerful levels with enough spell damage. While I'd prefer to pair him and copies of him from Potion of Illusion with a really high spell damage card like Malagos, we can use Lab Partner to help us survive, or add the last bit of spell damage necessary for shenanigans with Raz Frostwhisper. So Lab Partner will enable that meme deck, and there will be some other fun experiments we can run with him as well. So this next card is an amazing reason to run Lab Partner in your deck. Cram Session is a 2-mana spell to draw a card, but it's improved by spell damage. So if you played a Lab Partner on 1, you can play this on 2 to draw 2 cards for just 2 mana. That's amazing value. And if you have any more spell damage on board from something like, say, Mozaki Master Duelist, you can draw an amazing number of cards for just 2 mana. Arcane Intellect is a staple card draw spell, but this feels so much better. It will be sad if you have to play it as a 2-mana draw 1 card, but you probably don't pull the trigger on that until you're desperate to draw, in which case cycling through your deck should still help. The only spell damage minion Highlander Mage runs at the moment is Astromancer Solarian. If they still ran Azure Explorer, I would go ahead and say that this could make the cut, as Astromancer Solarian has spell damage on both halves, and Azure Explorer would allow you to draw 3 cards with this. However, with only Astromancer Solarian as an extra value activator at the moment, I don't think Cram Session would make the cut. And no minion mage can't rely on getting spell damage minions from Font of Power to make this better, so they wouldn't run it either. But with Lab Partner and other spell damage synergies coming to the game, Cram Session will be a nigh auto-include in any mage deck that can fit a few of the synergy cards. And our Raz Frostwhisper meme deck will be eager to use earlier versions of spell damage minions to cycle through the deck with help from this. Who knows? Perhaps we'll build a Chef Nomi deck into a small spell damage deck? It's worth a try. Let's look at 2 high-impact neutral cards before we finish out today's review. First up is Wandmaker, a 2-mana 2/2 neutral minion that adds a 1-cost spell from your class to your hand with her battlecry. She'll be great for demon hunters to fish for more copies of Twin Slice, she'll be pretty good in Mage to get another small spell, and she'll be awesome in Shaman to get another activator for the Fist of Ra-Din in Reliquary Shaman. There were no neutral 1-cost legendary minions added to this set, so we're still guaranteed to get Reliquary of Souls from 1-cost spells with the Fist. The only current meta deck that would be eager to include Wandmaker is Tempo Demon Hunter, so that they can get one of their amazing 1-cost spells, preferably Twin Slice. As Cobalt Spellkin has been making some lists for the same purpose, and Amani Berserker is a popular card that this could swap in with, I think she would make the cut into a current meta deck. And in the future meta, not only will this still slot into Demon Hunter decks, but there's a fair bit of support in this new set for low-cost aggro decks to make a big impact. She might find a home in one of them, and I'd bet on her making the list for a small spell mage that rises into the meta. But really, the best deck for Wandmaker is a how many reliquaries can we summon meme deck alongside the Fist of Ra-Din and Horde Pillagers. There's no way we pass up the opportunity to make even more reliquaries. To finish off today's reviews, we get to look at Vectus, a 5-mana 4/4 neutral legendary minion with an effect that opens a whole lot of possibilities. His battlecry is to summon 2 1/1 whelps. These plagued hatchlings each gain a death rattle from your minions that died earlier in the game. He has powerful synergy in decks that run cards like Scrapyard Colossus, Bad Luck Albatross, Convincing Infiltrator, and almost any of the primes, including Reliquary Shaman. He also looks interesting with Anka the Buried in Death Rattle Rogue. In the current meta, even though Big Druid runs Scrapyard Colossus, he'd be a bad draw off of strength and numbers. And while Res Priest would love extra Albatrosses shuffled into opponents' decks, or minions killed with Convincing Infiltrator effects, the Plagued Hatchlings would be terrible in the Res pool. The decks that could get some real value out of him are Egg Warrior, due to the Serpent Eggs and Boombots, or Face Hunter with a few extra Cobalt Sand Trooper or Leper Gnome Death Rattles. He'd be the most expensive minion for Face Hunter and requires specific minions already dying to be good, but for between 6 to 8 extra face damage in addition to the bodies for 5 mana, they might consider him. In a lot of games with Egg Warrior, they will have played Serpent Egg or Bomb Wrangler by the time Vectus could come down, so he should get value from the hatchlings. I think one of these decks would pick him up. In the future meta, there should definitely be a deck or two that figures out how to use this in broken ways. It may be Death Rattle Hunter getting Teacher's Pet and Bloated Python value, or it may be a Totem Shaman using Totem Goliath, or some overpowered synergy I don't see yet, but Vectus should join a couple meta decks. So what kind of memes can we pull off with Vectus? Well, he'll be amazing to get extra Dragon Rider Talritha value, and he'll shuffle even more Kargath Primes for us in Warrior. We might even try him out as a quick follow-up to Rattlegore if we can time it right. I don't think this will work with Lucent Bark, as the wording may mean the Plagued Hatchlings would be the ones to come back, but that is something we should check. There also has to be something fun we can do with Vectus and the Shaman Quest reward. But perhaps the most peculiar possibility is using Vectus in a deck with Educated Elix. Our opponent kills off both Elix, thinking it's finally over, but then we drop Vectus for 2 more chances to generate more spells. Though actually, I'm not sure if the Plagued Hatchlings will have the effect to remember spells played, so they may not actually do anything. That's another thing to test out. Whatever the case, Vectus will enable a number of meme decks. And now for the quick reviews. Rogues may just barely get passing grades with Plagiarize in the current and future meta, but they will reach printing press levels of plagiarism in meme decks. Shifty Sophomore is too shifty to gain the trust of any meta decks, but she'll pull together a stealthy Whirl Kick Master meme deck. Secret Passage seems to be connecting rogues to all types of meta and meme decks so well that we'll never use normal routes ever again. Galakrond may not know how to use Self-Sharpening Sword well in the current meta, but rogues will adapt very quickly in the new meta, and Krastenov's Scheme will kill opponents twice as fast with this meme deck. Vulpera Toxin Blade doesn't get along with Galakrond, but Aggro Rogue is eager to sharpen weapons with it in the new meta, and Stowaway will summon some Shadow Toxin Blades in meme decks. Brain Freeze will freeze many minions in the current and future metas, but meme players will rack their brains trying to figure out a way to use this in a meme deck. Jandis Barov is powerful enough to secretly summon herself into almost any meta deck and at least 2 different meme decks. It will be no illusion when you see copies of Potion of Illusion appearing in all sorts of meta and meme decks. Firebrand will take some time to heat up, but he should be ready for the new meta. However, meme decks aren't quite sure how to handle him. Wormweaver will be stuck training mana worms in the current and future meta, but she'll be ready to unleash them in our freezing counterspell meme deck. Lab Partner would be busy setting up the lab in the current meta, but he'll be ready to partner with meta decks once the expansion hits, and every meme deck experimenter needs a lab partner. Without Azure Explorer, current meta decks don't feel the need for a cram session, but new meta mages will have many sessions with lab partners, and meme decks will be masters at cramming cards into their hands. Wandmaker will magic her way into a few meta decks, and she will make many memes for Fist of Radin decks. Vectus would summon aggressive death rattles now, and he'll hatch many a whelp in the upcoming meta while inspiring a plethora of experimental meme decks. And that's a wrap. The expansion will hit extremely soon, or it may already be here by the time you watch this. So enjoy the early experiments and opening all the packs with any gold you've saved up. There are 3 more reviews in order to cover all the cards, and I'm hoping to get those out before the new meta settles. But we'll also be doing a bunch of experimentation with the new cards. So drop a like if you enjoyed, and smash that subscribe button so you'll know when the next video comes out. You're awesome. Thank you for watching, and have an awesome day.
Hail to thee, O Scholomance, the magic school of yore. Your legacy